Hey guys, RJ here, and if you remember last week in my review, I said that the Expanse episode 10 was probably a little bit of a low point and that we would start riding the roller coaster hill back up for the end of this season, and I gotta say, tick, tick, tick. As always, guys, if you have not seen episode 11 of The Expanse, please turn this review off, go watch it on Sci-Fi Channel or online, and then come back here and then we can talk about it. I don't want to spoil anything for you. I think one of the most overlooked parts of TV series are actually their titles, and I don't think The Expanse gets enough credit for the fact that they really actually name their titles off of things that matter to the content in the episode, and here there be dragons indeed. So let's start off with Bobby. Bobby is basically going through this internal struggle between her love for Mars, her love for country, and her love of being a Marine. I mean, you could tell that even when they were up like near Mars and getting training and stuff, that she loved what she did. She was a great Marine. She never questioned herself or, she never questioned what she was doing. And then obviously the whole Ganymede thing happened. They're framing Travis. They're setting her up to kind of fail in this position. And it's kind of having her question her entire reality. And I don't blame her for this because there's a lot of questions swirling around, and I think she is really suspicious of what's going on, obviously, and after her talk with Christian, that suspicion is confirmed last week, and now this week she's kind of taking that suspicion and taking it one step further, and she's willing to confront people about it. And the main person that she's confronting is Captain Martins. And Martens? I don't know. You guys correct me down below. But yeah, she really gets in his face. So they have a little spat in her quarters at first, right? She's basically saying I need to know what happened to Travis. And he's just saying pretty blatantly, shut the hell up. You're a soldier. Do what you are told. This is what your orders are. Stop talking. Stop being or thinking about anything about what happened. You are going to go home and you're going to live out the rest of your days. And we end up learning in this episode that they're probably not going to keep her as a Marine anymore either. And as soon as she kind of gets the idea of that happening, I think it's kind of the thing that pushes her over the edge, and she realizes that she might have chosen the wrong side. Not that I'm saying I'd really want to choose Earth as a side right now. There is a lot of power struggle going on. You have Christian, Ehrenreich, and Jules Pierre Mao playing their games. And so Ehrenreich comes in to Christian's office and says hey, I have this information. We could probably put pressure on Jules Pierre Mao's daughter, and maybe she'd be able to give us some of the information that we would need to kind of pin him down and be able to blame him for the Eros thing. Well, because Jules Pierre Mao is nowhere to be found, Christian ends up letting Ehrenreich know, you are going to be the one to take the fall for Eros. It's not my decision, but I learned it from someone else. You're going to be the scapegoat, basically. The shining trophy, I think is the term she uses or something. And yeah, she lays it out all on the table for him. I think it's kind of silly of her to let him know this early, because if we've seen anything, he acts like, Ehrenreich's acting like he is playing like he's lost. He's playing like he's not going to go down with a fight. But what we've seen from his character throughout these last 2 seasons is the exact opposite. I do not see him giving up this easily. I think he probably is putting on an act for Christian, maybe to get her off of his tail and onto Jules Pierre Mao's. I don't know what exactly his play here is. I'm sure we'll find out eventually, but I just don't believe the fact that he's getting emotional in front of her and then, just walks out. It just doesn't seem like his character. Then we have the Rosinante crew up on Ganymede Station, just kind of wandering around. They find their way into the tunnels of the old station. And I just want to say there is one scene here where they show this health and safety closed on a door. I just thought that was kind of funny because clearly what's beyond those doors is the opposite. But yeah, okay. So I like the way that they set up the Ganymede stuff this time. They're kind of doing flashbacks of, what was happening during when the attack actually happened on Ganymede. And they're showing, the doctor and May, and they're walking through, and he's basically trying to keep her preoccupied because she's a child still. And, he's trying to she wants to go back to her dad and she doesn't want to keep following him. And yeah, so basically he ends up showing plans to her and playing guessing games. And clearly this guy has ill intentions because of the conversation that him and I'm just going to call her the assistant at this point, are having throughout this whole thing. She's I don't know about how safe this is. And he's just saying that this is her time to fly. And we actually get a great play on this. And we end up seeing him show her this plant leaf with a chrysalis on the bottom. And he ends up telling her this story about the fact that when he was young, he kind of tried to help this caterpillar come out of the chrysalis early and, didn't let it like fight its way out the way it should have. And I actually don't know if this is true about, I haven't actually Googled this yet, but apparently butterflies need to force themselves out of the chrysalis so that way their wings get all of the, protein and stuff or whatever. And yeah, that was an interesting bit of knowledge. I didn't know about that, but I do like the way that they set up this analogy for obviously a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, and we learned at the end of this episode exactly what they're talking about. But I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, let's talk about more of Bobby because she had some amazing scenes this episode. So after she kind of gets told that she's going to go back to Mars, not be a Marine anymore, and kind of, just like fade away into the abyss. Her whole life, this whole time has been to be a Mars Marine, and now she's being told that she's no longer going to do that. So clearly she is in for a character shift, and that is exactly what happens. She pretty much like goes from her room, goes to see and talk to the captain. Well, there's not a whole lot of talk involved, to be honest with you. Bobby just kind of loses her shit because he won't answer her questions. She just like throws him against the TV, choke slams him up against the wall, and pretty much eventually, because he won't give the answers that she wants, she just like beats him in the face. And oh my god, that was so satisfying. I'm just not a big fan of him, so I was really happy to see that when she actually just finally like took out her rage. And yeah, eventually we get a few more answers. The reason that drone was there was to obviously capture all of the events happening on the ground, and it's basically like a sales ploy, right? They're trying to show like, hey, this took out, 6 world Marines and 4 Mars Marines. Like, look how powerful this thing we've created is, and it's sick. It's really twisted, and I mean, that's Bobby's reaction to it. She like has it in front of her face, and she's like, what is wrong with you guys? You slaughtered my whole team just for like a sales order. And she's like, I hope it was a good one. Then Bobby just slams another Marine against the wall. I don't know if she killed him or if he's going to just wake up with the worst headache tomorrow. But yeah, man, she slammed him against the wall. And then she tries to casually like sneak out of the Mars facility. I thought that was kind of hilarious. She's like looking around like, does anyone notice me? And yeah, she ends up barely sneaking out. They start following her, like chasing her down. And pretty much she sprints across. And there's this great visual shot of where you have the Mars and the Earth flag there. Like she's running and she's caught in between them. God, nothing could ever be more real than that right now. She's clearly caught between 2 worlds, and I just love the visualization of her running across, and she seeks asylum from Earth. And I think people just need to realize like where we started with her as a character, right? She was ready to go invade Earth. She was ready to go kick ass on Earth, right? And now she's pretty much realizing like what all these players are doing, and that it's obviously a lot more complicated than just Earth is bad. And I mean, she was a soldier first, and now she's realizing that the world is a lot more complicated than, her officers made it out to be. And I mean, they do that on purpose, right? They're supposed to follow orders. They're grunts, like you do this, you do this, you do this. But yeah, she's starting to question the world, and she ends up meeting Christian after seeking asylum. I do love Christian's line, like after yesterday, I didn't expect you to cause this kind of incident. I love that. And I just like the way that Bobby and Christian kind of play off of each other too. And yeah, she ends up handing over the device that her captain was using, and pretty much, they're going to go try and, crack that, get all the information they can out of it. I don't know what is on there, how much information they're really going to be able to gain that they don't already have, but I am interested to see what happens there. And I just like the way that they play off each other in this scene in general. And she's like, like, what do you want? And I love the end line where Bobby says, I'm not a sergeant, I'm not a Marine anymore. All right, guys, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Venus. Okay, so we see Dr. Turby and Anus flying around, and pretty much they're trying to send probes down to Venus to see what is exactly going on. Whatever interference is going on down there, they want to get a closer look at it. Obviously, humans can't just go wander down into Venus, or can they? No, but seriously, it is good to see these two working together. I think we're going to need as many smart people working together instead of against each other soon, because what we end up seeing down on the planet is probably like the biggest news we've gotten in a while. We see the proto-molecule, just like I kind of guessed, is growing on Venus. It is alive. It is not dead like we kind of all thought originally. And yeah, man, they've been hinting at this. It's not like it's a gigantic surprise, but it is great to finally see like confirmation on screen that the proto-molecule did not die in that impact. I'm curious as to what is inside this like proto-molecule city or whatever, like, are Joe Miller and Mal just like in there just like fooling around still, or is like something serious about to break out? But yeah, the probe goes out and Dr. Turby and Anus don't really know what to do at that point. But yeah, man, we learned a lot in this. I mean, it was just like 3 seconds of actual camera time, but even seeing like the spread, seeing how like wide it's gotten, how big it's gotten, it's just crazy to me. And I think it's pretty obvious at this point that we shouldn't trust the proto-molecule, or at least in its current state. I mean, it just devours everything that it touches. And my favorite character in the show has once again one of the best scenes, and it was actually a really simple scene, right? He's like playing around with his ring while he's trying to figure out the Mars. You know, they're all around Ganymede. Nobody can come in. It's a no-fly zone, and he's trying to figure a way around this. And he's just like messing with his ring, and then I just love the way it like floats off into 0G, and he ends up grabbing out at it and pulling it back in. But then I love this part. This is like why I watch The Expanse, right? Like just this cool sci-fi tech stuff that they bring to life, at least through CGI and whatnot. But yeah, man, I mean, this is the future that we're gonna hopefully be going towards eventually. And he ends up throwing his ring through, the computer's making a hologram of the entire system. He throws it through and it gives him an idea. How am I gonna get to Ganymede without, turning on the engine and getting caught? But, I could probably use thrusters. So he ends up using this idea, and he has the computer model his flight path, and it's like crazy. It's like going around all these different moons just using thrusters, very silently, and that way he can be undetected and hopefully come in, because we learn that there is a ship docking at Ganymede to pick up something, and he's like, yeah, that's a Black Ops ship. Like, I'll just follow it in, hopefully come in undetected and use the moons as gravity to basically come in. But yeah, that ends up not working 100% because he ends up running into a Mars ship. But I just love all of the shots of the Rosinante just like flying around these moons, like in all different directions. Great camera angle work there. And Alex like leaning like one way or the other so that like the target is still green and stuff. Like I love that whole part. And then of course he comes around one of the moons and we get one of the most gorgeous shots in The Expanse so far. And yeah, just seeing, everything there. Oh my God, like it was beautiful. And Alex even says that, like, damn, that's a view, right? And and so he comes around this moon, and then of course a Mars ship is there. He has to retake control back ahead of the moon again, get behind there and hide again. And yeah, he gets really close to getting caught. Thankfully, as we learn later in the episode, when he arrives at the airlock, he's safe. Throughout the last couple of episodes, we have seen Naomi kind of looking at Holden in a different light. He has clearly kind of gone a little bit darker so far. I wouldn't say crazy or anything yet, right? He's not willing to kill thousands of people or anything, but he is certainly on a mission to destroy the proto-molecule. I mean, he is not like hesitating at all anymore when it comes to dealing with assholes. Like, obviously, when it's innocent people, he's still very kind and usually pretty considerate, but his eye is on the prize, and that is destroying the proto-molecule and wherever that exists. So I do like appreciate the darkness a little bit because like it's grungy and I like that, but also Holden started off as this very like innocent character trying to save everyone's life, and he's very honest and isn't willing to lie really at the beginning of the series, and now we see where he's at. It's just kind of amazing. I mean, that's why Naomi looks at him the way she does in this episode multiple different times, and I mean everyone can kind of tell that like he's kind of veering off his path of good. Let's describe the bunker scene. So they end up breaking into this bunker, and you see this great shot of like all these people just sitting there having a meal, and like, they're breaking in, and like, it was almost comical to me. I don't know why, but like just sitting there watching them eat and like pointing guns at people, I found it a little bit comical. And yeah, so pretty much they end up having a firefight. Amos gets hit in the arm, and I love his joke of like, why am I always the one to get shot? Like I'm the badass here, but I did love that. And pretty much they end up, or two to three of them, I would say, end up escaping into this other separate bunker room. It's like a utility closet or something. And yeah, they end up locking the door and they can't get in. But then while everyone is distracted, Jim Holden just burned a child that had proto-molecule infected with it. And I mean, clearly the scientists were pumping these kids full of this stuff. You see like the blue all across their face. But he, once again, like, he has a sad moment for the kid, and then he just walks out and like, boom, boom, like, see you later, incinerated, like, nothing. And it seems like he's just changed as a character in general, and I know that that's kind of the point, but I really liked him before. I really liked the way that he was, like, striving to do the best that he could. It seems like now he's willing to kind of, like, not care on some things. So yeah, while they're all distracted, the one doctor woman throws out this grenade. Amos, being clutch as hell like he has been for every single episode, picks up the grenade, tosses it back into the room, and then you hear the explosion. But then what you hear afterwards is way more important. You just hear all these screams and yells and this like weird like almost alien-like sound coming out of there. And yeah, and then you hear this gigantic crunch, and then it seems like a vacuum seal comes out, and that's exactly what we learn ends up happening is they walk into this room and they see this like glass case that has anesthesia with it, and clearly something broke out of it, but Holden ends up seeing the doctor woman first and goes over to her, and this is where you kind of see the final breaking point for Naomi is this woman is like holding her neck, like trying not to die, like Snape style Harry Potter, and Holden just like does not give a shit. He's like, what were you doing with the protomolecule? Why were you putting it in kids, you freaking like terrible person? Tell me where it's going. Like, what is this? And she just obviously is about to die, so she's, I think, just not caring at this point, but he doesn't even like attempt to help her. He just wants to sit there and I wouldn't say watch her die, but he's just too worried about getting the information instead of actually assisting her. And I mean, I'm not saying she deserves to live, guys. I'm just saying like Holden at the beginning of this series versus now would have totally helped out this woman bleeding on the floor no matter what she did previously. So yeah, our last scene is pretty much we see Holden looking out of the airlock with Alex and Prax, and you see this alien figure kind of climbing over Ganymede. And I mean, it's pretty obvious that that's exactly what was sent to attack Bobby and her team. And I mean, we get to hopefully see it up close next week, but Holden did say, like, get the vac suits on, we're going out there. I'm really excited to see where that leads, but I am actually pretty worried at this point because I see Naomi and Amos, go up the stairs, and it sounds like they're going to stay on Ganymede to do as much good as they can there, help as many people as they can. And I understand why Naomi is doing this. She feels like she's lost herself and, she wants to just do as much good as possible. But at the same time, is any of that going to matter? Is any of the good stuff going to matter? And this is kind of why I agree with Holden. Is any of that going to matter if the protomolecule gets out and pretty much destroys humanity? The answer is no. It doesn't matter what happens on Ganymede. The important part here is catching the protomolecule and destroying every trace of it, at least as far as the viewer knows. Well, guys, that is pretty much it from me this week. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoy doing these reviews for The Expanse. This show is terrific. This is setting up a great ending for the end of this season. I can just feel it in my bones. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. You guys like this episode as much as I did. I thought it was way better than last week's episode, not because that was bad, but just because this thing took it to a whole other level, and I'm really happy to see that in The Expanse. So let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe to us here on YouTube if you haven't already. Like this video if you liked it. And until next time, guys, we'll see you soon.